good friend and colleague, Paul Kirschbaum. I'm Leslie Wooten. It's 10:33. Let's get into it. Today's topic is part 3 of a 4-part series that hopefully you saw episodes 1 and 2 going into this. We talked about menu analysis. We talked about identifying what's the right menu for your operations. And then we took the numbers and the analysis of the menu to start creating a menu and recipes before we got into the food part of it. Because with the recipes, we absolutely wanted to make sure that you might have some unique items here and there, going with some fads if that's really what you think is going to work with your clientele. But the big part that we got out of the creation part of the menu and the recipes is cross-utilization of ingredients, making sure that you have the right kitchen for what you're trying to output, and making sure that you have the right design for your entire business, for the dining room, the patio, the bar, whatever it might be. And now we're on to menu development. So yes or no, Paul, with menu development, we finally get to eat.
Yes, we get to eat.
All right.
Eat some food. At least not just a chef.
Yeah, right. Oh my goodness. Imagine if it was just a chef. But is this really where a chef's knowledge and experience comes into play?
Yeah, this is their. I mean, they're going to be involved in all other aspects of it, but this is where they shine.
Mm-hmm. But like you said, not just them. Who else needs to be involved in this?
All leadership, and I mean that if that's front of the house, GM. If there's managers, sub-managers, shift managers, anybody that you trust on that side of it in your establishment, but also your core customer base, like your regulars. I mean, this is where they get involved too. Now, do we take
if
all
you already
of their
have an
stuff
established restaurant? Yeah.
Yes, if you have established restaurants. So we come from most of the time I'm walking into places, it already exists. When we do,
I work a lot of openings. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have too in the past, but it's not that it changes things. It's just a different attack. You're still doing the same exact things.
Yep.
Now, when I say guest feedback, you might be bringing some random people, your friends or family, over to try these things at home or at your place being built. If you don't have a place being built, you might have an off-premise kitchen, but that's it. You need that feedback from people that don't have the investment that you do.
Mm-hmm. Now, working with a lot of people that are opening a new restaurant, I found that this step is the part where a lot of people expect this to be the beginning. And it often starts with, we had a lot of people over and we were testing recipes and we really like this and this. And yeah, you're laughing because you already know where I'm going. Like, and just let's answer the question of, why do you not start at this step?
It's just, you need to know that you need to have information before this is the passion step. There's a lot of passion in that. Okay. Passion goes away at times. All right. There's a lot of mistakes can be made if you start here, a lot, because then you'll try to make things fit. And that is the worst thing to do. Don't make something try to fit because you like it. It's not about you. It's about the customer. Now, do you have influence? Of course, but this is where the passion and rightfully so. This is where the chef gets involved and has a lot of passion about it, or wants this and this and this. But you got to have this stuff before, or there's no way you can quantify it.
You should show up to this step, the menu development, with recipes already written. You should show up to this step with recipes already written based on the analytics from your first step. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't change the recipes. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't allow for input from whoever you invite. And you named a lot of people coming to the table. And in my experience, I'm like, the fewer, the better. And I don't mean just the chef and the owner, but I mean not the neighbors and the neighbor's cat and the best friend's dog's landlord's former owner, sheep herder. Like who's coming to this? Like, we can't have that. Like, the people that come to this have to recognize that we are presenting recipes that we've created based on analytics. You're going to test these. You're going to give us, your honest opinion on how it's going to work, but it has to fit within the group. And if 2 people don't like it, but 8 people do, that's an 80% win. And I'm going to listen to the 2, but I'm really going to listen to the 80% because, again, we got to consider everybody in there as representative of the people that are coming into the building. So you got to show up with recipes, and you got to be flexible, but you also got to be firm to stay in your little analytics box.
I agree, and I jumped ahead because I mean, what I'm saying at the beginning, that yeah, it's a top level. But what I'm meaning is that during the development phase, a lot of people are touching. You know, a lot of people are going to be involved in this. But you know, what we had, it was, you know, we had our basically our, you know, our area where we wanted to land, and we were not going to, you know, veer away from that. Well, how do we get that area? Well, we got it through analytics and you know, a lot of other things to get to that spot, because if you don't, you're going to go down a rabbit hole, and and people are going to say, well, this, in my experience, this, and this, and well, in my experience, this, and this, and I'm sitting back and go, well, let's stop and ask about your experience before we go, you know, because to me, it's just like, it's a pissing contest, and
somebody's experience and opinions not going to change the analytics that we created already.
No, but it's what, you know, I can't tell how many places I walked into go, oh no, this is definitely my number one seller. And I was like, okay, let's run the PMX and find out. I mean, it's in the top 3, but more times than not, it's not in the top 1. They think they know, and they're there every single day, but they don't really know. They never ran that report, and the ones that have, oh yeah, no, that not only that is my number 1, this is number 2, this is number 3, this is number 4.
Yeah.
Unless it's winter.
I don't even like our number 1. That's an awesome thing to hear from an operator. They're like, I don't even like the number 1. I'm like, cool. It's still number 1. And that just tells me that they're more invested in their business than their personal tastes. If they can recognize what are the top 3, bottom 3 on their PMix, whether they like them or not. How often do we get to this step, the menu creation, where we're testing recipes and decide we don't need to test this recipe or this item? Or do you have to test
everything?
Test everything.
Oh yeah, and I'm just, and this is from experience, Les. I have crash and burn on this many times. It took me 3 times before I realized maybe we should just listen to the numbers a little bit, just a little bit, because you know, I'll give you an example. You put something on the menu and you're like, oh, this, I don't need to test this. I know it's gonna be awesome. Well, yeah, it's awesome, and the customer loved it, but it just crashed my kitchen. I don't have 2 fryers. I have 1 fryer. I cannot physically do this. So you need to test everything. You don't have to test it for a month, but you need to test it for a couple of days at least. Expect busy days at least, so you can get feedback from your front and back of the house staff and management saying, hey, great, everybody loved it, but it is to make, and
a beast.
We're having issues. We're having major issues, and either you got to make a decision there. Do we continue with it and tweak some things? Maybe the recipe, maybe the kitchen. Is it worth tweaking your kitchen?
Yeah, so not only are you suggesting that we test the output of the recipe, but how long it takes to create the recipe, the input that you have to put into the recipe to get the output. Is this taking 12 minutes in a 10-minute kitchen? Is this taking 30 minutes when nobody wants anything to take 30 minutes? Are you making, what's the doughboy recipe, the thing that every time you order it at a breakfast place, they're like, all right, that's going to take 25 minutes. What is that thing called? Oh my goodness.
You're past my favorite.
It's a pastry that they have at the original Pancake House. I don't know, but you order that and you're, something baby.
All right. Is it like when you walk in, like if you want to order your dessert now, the souffle is going to take 45 minutes. It's like, yeah, that's the stuff you leave for home. No, but again, fine dining, it works.
Right.
I mean, there's something to be said about ordering dessert before you sit down. I kind of like that idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Then you're committed to it. Like, especially while you're hungry, you know?
Yeah, that's actually smart.
But this is where you got to test not just the recipe and the execution, but and the output, but the execution of it, making sure that here's how long it takes. And that's if I have 1 or 2 people working on different ingredients. And you got to be able to test the right equipment. So how wrong is it to test all this in a residential kitchen instead of a commercial kitchen?
I mean, I've done it. It's much harder when you're opening a restaurant, and I understand that, but it's hard. It's hard to kind of test it at home and then try to scale that for a restaurant.
Right.
You know, what I would recommend is either find a test kitchen. I mean, a lot of these, especially food purveyors, have this stuff, or at least will get you one or get you into somewhere that you can play for a while. With all the ghost kitchens popping up, and I mean, even in Portland, Maine, there's a kitchen you can rent by the hour.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd recommend just at least using that part of it. Now,
Yeah.
you're not going to, be able to sift through the service and all that, but you can kind of get an idea of it. But it's harder. It's 10 times harder to open up with a brand new restaurant or a brand new menu because you have no clue.
So we're talking equipment, and I'm totally with you that you need to get the equipment to be the exact equipment that you're going to use in the exact scenario that you're going to use, or as close to it as possible. What about the food? Should you get a food provider involved in this? Because typically you're buying larger quantities. Should you still go through the food provider, or can you get a similar product in a smaller quantity at a local market?
Well, depending on the size of the place you're opening, if you go through a food purveyor, you're going to get samples for free. If you already have an account set up and the credit app and all that done, I would highly recommend at least asking the food purveyor first, because those are the ingredients you're going to use. What food purveyors get is not what supermarkets get.
Right.
It is, some things are, don't get me wrong, but there's some things that are only through food purveyors. You can only get them through the Sysco's, the U.S. Foods, the Gordons of the world. You can't get them through the Hannafords, the H-E-Bs of the world. Now, do they have their own proprietary products? Absolutely. But if you need to get a food purveyor involved, if you're a large operation or something that's going to be spending more than $1,000 a week, $2,000 a week, get them involved ASAP. Not only are they going to get you samples, they're going to help with this whole menu strategy. Most of them have people on staff that will walk you through this, checklist you all day long, be support for you all day long. But yeah, get that involved. I'd rather do that than go to a grocery store.
So the big takeaway in that part of this conversation is try not to substitute, because as soon as you start substituting, or worse, you're trying these ingredients, you love it, and then you get into your kitchen, you're like, well, let's go with the cheaper product for this. I know we tested it with this in the kitchen, but this is going to save us money in the long run. You're already changing your recipe out of the gate. And the whole purpose of this part of the development is to actually try it the way it's going to be served. Why are you substituting now or allowing yourself to substitute later? If you're willing to go for a cheaper product, test that now in the development. Try it. You might like it.
And there's other options. I mean, you're talking to somebody that for a living sells food. That's what they do. Yeah, they're salesmen. Everybody doesn't make their buck. They do. So, but their experience, and I've been around some salespeople that, were former chefs. A lot of them are former chefs, believe it or not. So they could be saying, okay, I want this, this, and this. And they'd be like, but you can do this. And it's actually a better thing or a better product at a better price. And
source locally the
one thing I would say, and this is where a lot of these sales guys and women come in major when they come in is yield. You say, oh, I just want a case of lettuce and I don't want to spend more than $24. Well, if you get a case of lettuce from Joe Schmo and a case of lettuce from Joe, this exact same, they're 24 heads, they're by count. This one weighs 25 pounds. This one weighs 32. I've seen it. I've done it. I've weighed them with a scale. And these salespeople, they know this stuff. That's their job to know this stuff. 7 pounds of lettuce
is a lot.
Think about it per ounce. How much goes on a plate? What, a couple, 5 ounces?
Yeah.
2 ounces, right?
Yeah.
So it's 5 pounds difference. You're putting 2 ounces on a plate. What's one of your best margins in your restaurant? That is like 5, like you break it down, you're like, this is how many more plates you're going to get just out of that case.
Yep. Use it. Totally agree. Yep. Use as close to the ingredient, if not the ingredient, as you can during the development phase. And if you can't do that, you're not ready for development stage.
Yes.
So we talked about cross utilization, and we know for a fact that once we get into the kitchen, we have a lot of things that are prepped, and sometimes the scraps, like you're cutting the corners off steak or whatever it's going to be, turned into something for a beef stew or whatever it is. That's just my quick example. But for this stage, do we want to prep the same way, or do you want to prep individually for each item that you're going to make?
I would prep it like you're doing in the kitchen. I mean, that's just the way I do it. And I want to do a quick call out because you said, using the trimmings for stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're cutting down and I used to do this in my past, so I'm not harping on this, but if you're taking a beef tenderloin and you're taking the ends off and you're putting those in a stew, it's one damn expensive stew because it's still $9 to $15 a pound
Mm-hmm.
or $20 a pound. You're still paying the exact same,
Mm-hmm.
but it's going in a stew. So
Right.
that has to be a consideration when you are in the development phase.
But at some point, you do have trimmings or waste or a sauce or something that is a pre-part that could turn into a cream sauce here or a spicy sauce here, and that base is something that you can prep on its own, whether half of it turns into this or half of it turns into this. So I hear what you're saying on careful what you're doing with the trimmings. And what I'm saying is if you're going to have trimmings, no matter what, find something to do with them.
Yeah. But absolutely, but charge the right amount.
Oh yeah. Remember what you paid for it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you remember what you're paying, does not change the difference that you consider it waste. You might consider it waste, but when you bought it, it wasn't waste. It was still the exact same price. It didn't lose its value because you cut it.
Right. Absolutely. Yep. 100%.
We're on the same page.
Yeah, we got there. So there's no way that through this process, everything comes out perfectly. There's no way that it's going to be exactly the same way it's going to be once you get in there. What kind of success rate in this development process should you expect overall about what per item? Do you think you're going to get anything exactly right? And what kind of acceptance should you take along this path?
About less than half.
Less than half?
You're going to fail more. You're going to fail more than you succeed.
Okay.
And that's
definitely come in with more recipes than you expect to have on the menu.
Yeah, I would test more recipes than I would not be stubborn like I know I'm gonna put these 8 on. I was gonna test them anyway. Well, what's the point of testing? So if you're gonna put 5 to 10, let's say you're gonna put 5 items on, I would at least test 10 items.
Okay.
Because you might end up only putting 2 on. You never know.
If you're being honest with yourself and your business, yeah.
Yeah.
So what pitfalls might you encounter during this process? What might be the worst case scenarios?
That's like a complete bomb. Like the customer hates it. We're already past the food cost pace, so we know that. I think really just the customer, and then operationally, if the kitchen can handle it. I think that's the biggest pitfall people run into. They're like, "Oh, this is awesome. Customer loves it," but they never talk to the line cooks on a day-to-day basis that did it, and they're like, "This is not going to work. We're actually hurting our turnover time, our ticket time, because we can't get this out the door, or it's one spot, it's only one item for one thing." And we talked about that last time for inventory, but the pitfalls usually hit the kitchen and the customer.
Okay. And at what point is it okay, as hard as it might be, to say complete waste, we completely missed the mark, and we've got to go all the way back to analytics and call this development recipes, everything, just scrap them and start over? At what point should you not only allow yourself to do it, but force yourself to do it because things are not going well?
This is the stage to do it. I mean, you have the option until the end of the stage before you get into design to scrap it. It's going to cost you, it might cost you some coin, but it's going to cost you way more coin if you throw something on the menu that's not ready. It's expensive to do this process, but it's more expensive to redo menus. They ain't cheap to print.
Right. And this step is not cheap as well. So what do you say to anyone who wants to skip this step, who thinks, oh, our recipe, I trust my chef. They do this thing where I trust my people. I'm like, that's cool. But what should operators, owners expect as a result if they want to, quote, save money by skipping the development stage and trust that their recipes are okay? Just go straight into production.
No, even a blind mouse finds a nut once in a while. I don't know. Is that the acronym I'm looking
for? Squirrel, yeah.
Hey, or cheese. I should have said cheese. And it's an acronym. I don't know. Really, it's, you can. Are you going to get lucky? I mean, I've seen restaurateurs who've been in business for 20 years and honestly didn't even know what a PMix was. But they've been doing it for 20 years. And so, is that luck? Is that skill? Is that just intuition? I don't know. But in general, to skip the step to me is
location.
They
got the right,
yeah. they got the right manager, they got the chef that never wants to leave. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it, but in general, if you skip this step, you're setting yourself up for failure. Doesn't mean you're gonna be a failure or your
Right.
menu's gonna bomb. It could be awesome. You can hit the mark and blow out of you do it every single time, and you're a savant. But um, it's not. I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't do it. I'd rather have some information behind it. It doesn't drive everything I do, and I will gamble with maybe one item on the menu, but I
Yep.
won't gamble with a whole new, brand new menu or a whole new menu redesign. I wouldn't gamble with my whole menu.
I'm with you, because all in, this part of the process for any size restaurant, I'm going to say upper end is going to cost $2,000 to $5,000 for food, for a kitchen, for staffing if you have to. Like, just guessing game, I'm going to say $2,000 to $5,000. I don't know of any business that's not worth the investment for what you could learn through this process.
Yeah, I mean, even like a restart of during COVID. I mean, a restart of an existing restaurant that closed down that's restarting is going to cost them between $10,000 and $50,000. And because part of this is the process, and we haven't even touched on training the new items.
No.
So I'd rather get this done before we start training the new items, because that's where it gets really expensive.
So I've got a very specific opinion on this, but learning and development on training staff, is this a good time to bring them all in and let the new staff, the new cooks, bartenders, servers, everyone come in so that they can test and train alongside the menu testing as well?
No, I mean, I don't mind some input. I mean, you have to be careful, too many cooks in the kitchen kind of thing. But at the end of this process, I'd start trickling them in, and that would probably be by, how long they've been with us. What do I value their opinion on? And that's not being I'm not trying to hurt somebody's feelings, but somebody that's been with the company for 20 years or been serving for 10 years or 5 years or 3 years, they're going to know more about what our customer wants and what is feasible. They're going to pick up stuff that I never noticed. So I definitely want some input before we get into the design of it. Because in my life, and I know we kind of not disagree, but we come from a different angle. When it comes to design, we're already past everything. Design is just the lipstick on the pig. I mean, it is just making everything look pretty. We've already know where layout goes. We already know where positioning goes. That all part of it is where the analytics come in. When we get into the design part, we are starting to move stuff around, but that's where it makes it pretty. But your end, that's more of where the training and all that. I'm guessing, I'm speaking for you. Tell me if I'm wrong. That's where that stuff comes in.
Yeah, and I'm excited to get to the design part, because that's my sub passion. I just love the design and graphic design, just so much. But that's not my expertise. I just love it. So about to get there, but learning and development, that is where my expertise is. And I'm absolutely with you. While we're testing the menu is not the time to start teaching people what the menu is, because it's going to be confusing if they're trying to learn what it is, and it's more discovery learning. And
it'll change.
I'm all for discovery learning with young minds, like Montessori schools, where you're trying to just discover learning and explore, and let's see this. Oh, what do you want to learn about? This is a business. This is not discovery learning. You need to get that menu set. And I'd even recommend having the majority of the design done, so that your staff, your bartenders, your key leads, whoever it is that needs to learn all this, you're giving them the final answers on the recipes. You're not giving them, we think it's going to be this. No, you need to tell them what the answer is, because if you're trying to save money bringing them into this, you're wasting time, because think of all the changes that you're going to make during this. If you're actually trying to save money, do it right.
Yeah, because you might tweak a recipe because it's not functional in the kitchen, and you don't want it, and then you're going to get people confused. Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that one.
And then
once you know the ones, I'll start training a little bit if we know hey, it hits all our marks, it hits the food costs. I'll start slowly bringing it in, and it usually is the back of the house, usually not front of the house.
Well, they learn it so that the front of house can learn it, because the front of house needs to learn what the back of house is doing, so that they can be that communication between the customer and the back of house. That makes perfect sense in a learning development standpoint. You don't put the cart before the horse. You don't teach them something that might change. So once you've solidified it, that doesn't mean that you can't ever change it, but it's got to be pretty close to complete.
Yeah.
All right. So let's bridge ourselves. I was about to say tickle design a little bit. Let's start talking about bridging this conversation to design, which is our next episode. So let's not go too far yet. But during this time, you're bound to recognize what your would you say your workhorses are, your stars. You're bound to recognize what the prominent items are on your menu, because one, you did the analytics. You know that your profit margin is good. You know that it's got a good food cost to it, and holy moly, was it delicious and easy to make. You're going to find something like that, and you know for a fact this needs to be prominent on my menu. Tell me a little bit about that, what we're discovering here.
So now we're basically classifying the items on your menu. So what we're going to do is all about positioning. I won't go too deep into it because I know some of it gets into the design part, but really we want to put your stars that are the best food cost. Again, I care more about margin, best margin, and you know they're going to be popular, or they on your P-mix were popular. Okay, so this is kind of where you kind of place stuff. So, I mean, there is a science to it where your eye goes and categories. So usually in a category, when you look at a restaurant, you know, the number one line item is usually the best margin and the best food cost, and it's a star. On the and the number two is number two. Number three usually on the bottom, because your eye scans up to the bottom, and then moving categories around. That's why you started going to restaurants. You see appetizer at a different spot, maybe the bottom right or left, because they're trying to get your eye to spend more money per check average. So that's where the layout comes in. You love design. I like it a little bit. I dabble into it. We go back and forth. We agree on some things, disagree on other things. But where I make my bones is placement. Yeah, your menu can be pretty, but does it make you money? And I tell this to operators all the time. I'm not here to make it pretty. You can hire someone for that. Yeah, let him do that. Yeah, I'm going to make him money. And I'm going to guarantee it, not guarantee it. Well, I'm going to guarantee it. Damn it. I'm going to make your menu more money than it did on the last menu. That's my job. My job is if we get 100 people walk in the door on a Friday, and then we launch a new menu and the same 100 people walk in on the next Friday, our percentage should be up.
Yep.
They ordered the exact same thing. Everything was done exactly the same. The difference is layout. And their eye goes to things.
Change. You should be updating, absolutely.
Yes. And then you check because commodities change. I mean, remember back skirt steak when I was growing up in Texas was dirt cheap. I mean, like maybe $4 a pound, $3 a pound. I mean, now you can't find it for less than 11.
Well, those are the early 70s, right?
Yeah. Chicken wings, bite me. Chicken wings used to be really cheap. Now, they're not. It's one of the highest food cost items on your menu. That's why when you walk into a menu, if you walk into a restaurant and they serve chicken wings, and the chicken wings and I'm going to give the secret away. The chicken wings are by the pound. You order them by the pound. They're 1 pound. It costs $9.99, $12.99. You know for a fact they cost their menu. How do we get into know that how that happened? You gotta let me. You gotta ask a question or leave a comment.
Yep. Or you walk into an establishment and you order wings. You're like, how many wings are on this? And they say, oh, you get 6.5 because we're going to give you 6, and then we're going to give you the little thing that fell out of the side of the bag, and we're going to call that 7.
That little nugget with one piece of bone popping out.
Like, this isn't even a bone that belonged in an animal. Like, where does this come out of? It's a limb that fell off and the chicken flew into it.
I use this all the time, and I know I'm not going to get too deep into placement, and I'll get off my soapbox. But it's this way. I do the chicken wing theory. I love chicken wings. Les, I eat them probably more than I eat anything else.
I thought I loved them. I still think I love them, but I've been chicken wing eating with you, and so my love's not the same.
So, but when most people go into a restaurant and they want chicken wings, they're going to find it on the menu. And so I tell operators, listen, it doesn't matter where you put it. It doesn't matter. It can be in the middle. You can hide it for all I care.
Yeah.
They're going to find it.
Yeah.
What is cheaper food costs, it has the exact same margin. Chicken strips or chicken nuggets or
Mm-hmm.
the wings.
Mm-hmm.
They're just all they are breast meat or you know leftovers or
Yeah.
slice breast whatever but usually the food cost on that is roughly 18 to 22%. Maybe if they're using A1 tenders, it might be higher, but the chicken wings you're running 35 to 40%, and they're both being sold for $12. Like, hide the wings,
Mm-hmm.
show where those chicken
Yeah.
tenders are going. Like, put that top one, highlight it, put a little missile that shoots across the menu and blows up, and sparklers come up there, and a little genie goes, "Order me." Sorry,
That's just bad
this
design.
is coffee. I promise you.
Perfect. All right, final question for this topic, because I'm excited to get to the design part, because I'm ready to hear about fireworks and genies and order me signs. And I just want to know what font and color you're using on those. But for
I'm
this, you're
Go
fired.
ahead.
For this conversation, final question, can you do all of this in a day?
Nope. That's it. We're done.
Thanks for
No,
watching.
You cannot. No, you cannot. No, you got to have a menu plan. A normal menu strategy takes between 2 to 3 months. Can you do it in a month? Yes, you can.
Mm-hmm.
Can you do it in 2 weeks? Sure. But I don't think you're going to get the right. If you're running the business, if you're currently open and you're running the business day to day and doing this, it takes a couple months.
Fantastic.
And you need whoever's going to be your design. We'll get into that. They need 30 days.
Goodness, I love the memes online of people that think artists can just do something easily. Oh, just put this together real quick. I'm like, huh?
But I'm gonna promote you though, Les. I'm gonna put it on
Do it
my
for free.
social media
Right.
and promote you. You should be thankful to me.
You should do it for free. Yeah. Oh man. Oh, you're a chef. You love cooking. Just come cook at my barbecue. Like, it'll be fun. It's what you like to do.
Free beer.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Fun quick story real quick before I wrap this up is staying with you in New York City on a long visit that I had, where I think I remember half the days. I remember one time I woke up and you're like, hey, we're headed out to Jersey. I'm like, cool, what are we doing in Jersey? You're like, oh, we're just going to go see some friends and go hang out. I was like, okay. And you started gathering up all these things. I'm like, all right, so just help me carry this. And we got over to Jersey, and next thing I know, we walk in and we meet a friend of yours, and they introduce me. You introduced me to her, and then here's the kitchen, here's this, and she goes, and here's where we're setting this up, and here's the tables, and then she left. I'm like, oh, what are we doing? You're like, oh, I'm catering this event for this afternoon. And
it was a cooking demo.
I was like, I
told you through. Yeah, that's great. You're free labor.
I was free labor, hungover, and you're like, just start prepping this and prepping this. I'm like, I've been duped on a Saturday morning.
Did I make you move somebody too?
No. We were walking through Chelsea and people were moving, and it was a guy and a girl moving themselves, and we stopped and we helped them move. You did not make me do that. You and I, drinking all day, helped people, and I've got photos of that.
I thought we went up to like Queens and like moved somebody.
Not on purpose. Not on purpose.
Didn't you have to get like surgery after you left?
I did. Yeah, I had. Yeah, I had a spinal infusion. So I've got a plate in my neck thanks to our adventure.
It's not my fault. I was just the facilitator.
I like fountains.
Yeah.
Oh man, good thing not very many people watch this, or actually it might be pretty entertaining if you've gotten to this far in it, because let's go back to wrapping up this episode so we can get to the design part. And I really feel that when people daydream about opening a restaurant or being involved with menu creation or whatever they've seen on TV, this part, the eating part, the food discovery, they think that this is what it's all about. And I've been lucky enough to be part of a few of those. And I know you've been part of far more than myself. This is a struggle, and it's not as glorious as it may seem like you think it's going to be. Hearts are broken. Pocketbooks are put to the ultimate test. Your favorite items may change, will change, or go away entirely. You may discover new things that make you feel like changing the entire operations based on what menu discovery you have during this development stage. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear your successes. What have you created and tested before with the menu? Tell us about your biggest worries, your greatest successes. Leave us a comment. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Show us some love, and we'll keep coming back with more strategies, highlights, insights, and helping you to improve your operations with the next menu episode coming up very, very soon. Thank you so much.